I made fun of my brother-in-law's financial status after he insulted my husband. My younger sister and her husband have 6 kids. They don't have high-paying jobs and can barely afford to go by a month. I always give them part of my income every month. I'm not on good terms with my brother-in-law. Sometimes he is rude and I don't like to be around him. Recently, I got married to my wonderful husband, Danny, after 4 years of dating. He is an amazing guy. We had a beautiful baby boy, 6 months old. Danny didn't receive a good education. He didn't have a degree and couldn't go to high school. He worked as a truck driver and now he is a janitor at a middle school. He doesn't like people paying for him daily. 2 years into our relationship, he was still using his bicycle and said that it was just like a car. I bought him a car as a wedding gift. He was so happy, his smile and hug brought me unimaginable joy. Recently, Danny wanted to buy a laptop. His birthday was soon, so I decided to buy him that laptop as a gift. So, I had to use part of the money I kept for my sister. I invited my sister and her kids to dinner. I haven't seen her this week. I visit every week. Brother-in-law came as well. I always try to avoid brother-in-law, but we can manage to eat dinner without fighting. I told my sister that for the next month, I'll be only giving her $1,000 because I'll be using the rest for us. She didn't like that, but she was fine with it. Brother-in-law wasn't fine at all. He thinks I am wrong for not giving them when they desperately need money and instead using it for unnecessary stuff. He went as far as giving his opinion and advice, aka insulting my husband and saying that it's sad that all I can afford is to marry a garbage man who was a truck driver, saying imagine the kind of language he'd be using, and other very insulting things. Ironically, my husband is way more civilized than brother-in-law, is respectful, open-minded, smart, kind, generous, humble, and doesn't have an ounce of entitlement. Everything that brother-in-law lacks. Side note, and is really handsome. I got mad and made fun of him for being poor and that I'd pray for them to survive a month with their half-dozen kids without my leftovers. Why I might be the jerk, their kids were around and heard what I said. It might look as if I was bragging or shaming my sister. Finally, doing the thing that made me mad at brother-in-law for doing. Why I might not be the jerk, because I was defending my husband who wasn't around to defend himself against all these insulting comments that came out of my ridiculous entitled brother-in-law. Was I a hypocrite? From the comments, at this rate, I would just cut off the funding. You have your own family to think about. Your sister and brother-in-law should have financially planned for 6 kids without your help, money. OP, to be fair, I wasn't always the one helping them out. Back when they just had 3 kids, our parents were the ones helping her. After they passed away, I started doing that instead. Update, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We made this post a while ago. We both were reading the comments. We took your advice and decided to slowly cut the allowance since kids are involved. From 2,000 to 15,000 to 1,000, etc. We couldn't bring ourselves to cut it off at once. My wife called my sister-in-law who unexpectedly brought her husband Oliver. We started talking and we told them that we should save and take care of ourselves and our future, alongside our son's future. We told them our plan to cut the allowance and we told them that other resources are available for people who need them. Oliver got mad and said that they have kids too, and they need the money to live an acceptable childhood. I told them to try again and find second jobs even if they thought it was tiring, and that they should work for their family as parents. Oliver said that they weren't talking to me and to not interfere since it wasn't my money. Fighting Oliver is exhausting and a waste of time. He isn't a civilized guy. My wife isn't good at ignoring it. She got mad and asked him to shut up and that their family isn't our responsibility. They started fighting and it got heated. He can't insult her, money-wise, and isn't great at pointing at anything other than money and me, of course. It didn't end the way we planned. Due to his insults, we told them we changed our mind and decided to cut it all at once. Oliver started apologizing, but not to me. My wife pointed that, and since she isn't the person that could accept that apology, she would ask them to leave. Sister-in-law said we know her husband doesn't mean what he says and that we are focusing on his words too much, and that if we are okay with their kids having a hard time, then so be it. Before going after her husband's sister-in-law used her last card, their parents. It broke her heart. She tried contacting her numerous times, but sister-in-law isn't picking up or responding to the texts. We don't plan on backing up about our decision. We have to think about ourselves and our family. Yet, my wife still wants a relationship with her sister. She doesn't want to think that her sister only talks to her because she gives her money. And I truly wish this wasn't the case and for sister-in-law to contact her again. TLDR, we decided to slowly cut the allowance, but after a heated fight we decided to completely cut it, all at once. And we did. As to people's questions. 1. My wife doesn't think that her sister was the favorite child, but she was the younger child, so it was a bit different. 2. Sister-in-law never mentioned or complained about her husband being abusive towards her or anything. 3. For people who asked if I wanted to complete my education. I was embarrassed at first, but as I matured I'm fine with myself and my job. I don't mind being a janitor. I like the kids at school. If I wasn't a janitor, maybe I would have chosen to be a teacher. 4. To address the DM. First, no, I'm not using my wife for her money. My wife does pay more than I do, but I do contribute as well. For example, while she paid for the wedding, I bought the rings. Crappy rings, but we love them. She pays bills, and I buy groceries. She bought me my car, and I bought her new shoes. And so on. Second, no, I will not save up money and then dump her. What kind of suggestion is that? Confused face. From the comments, her only value to her sister was 100% the money. Your wife should walk away and let the sister define any relationship that they might have in the future. If she doesn't try to re-engage, that just confirms money was the root of the relationship. OP, it is really sad knowing that this relationship was based on money. That's not how siblings should act. I know that my wife will eventually lose hope and realize the sad truth. Though I hope my sister-in-law comes to her senses and stops this, and for her husband to change. Story 2, my husband is blaming me for his financial trouble. For a while now, my husband, John, has been getting more and more angry over little things and generally moody and distant. I had finally had enough and approached him about separation. This conversation led to a big blowout and him revealing the state of his finances. My husband and I have always kept our finances separate. Also, although we call each other husband and wife and had a wedding, we are not actually legally married. This was primarily for inheritance purposes because we each have older children from previous relationships. Anyway, John revealed that he had basically no savings left. That all the money he had saved for retirement and for his kids' schooling was gone. Furthermore, he said it was all my fault since he used all his savings up to try and keep up with my lifestyle. There was never anything crazy in terms of bills or anything like that, and we always split it all equally. The house we live in I own outright as well, so there wasn't a mortgage payment. However, I have always liked to travel a lot on fairly extravagant vacations. I would invite John and his children to join on trips, but never made them feel like they had to come. That said, he was expected to pay for himself and for his kids. Except for recently, he accepted every invitation. I would also give my kids things he considered extravagant, but I considered normal. So he felt like he had to give similar things to his own kids. John said with all the spending to keep up, his savings dwindled very fast. I expressed that I couldn't understand how or why he would spend all he had when he knew he couldn't afford it. He said it was like keeping up with the Joneses, only worse because it was at home, so he couldn't block it out. John thinks since I knew his job I should have had a basic understanding of his finances and realizes this wasn't a lifestyle he could maintain. That the kind thing would have been to offer to pay for the trips and other things instead of dangle them in front of his and his kids' faces. Looking back, I probably could have realized that this spending didn't make sense for his salary, but I wasn't thinking about it. I don't think it was my responsibility to keep his finances in mind here. We had agreed from the beginning to keep our finances separate, so to me that means paying for things separately. From the comments, info, I'm curious about some things. Exactly what kind of relationship do you each have with the other's kids? You are very clear about labeling your kids and his kids separately. Do you care for them at all, or are they just other people that live in your house? How do they feel about things being either for them or for not them? I'm just trying to understand this family dynamic you have. Can you give an example of this normal versus extravagant? Like, are you making separate meals for each set of kids? With his eating instant noodles while yours eat steaks every day. Like, how different are we talking? I don't know how old the kids are, so I don't know how much they notice or care, but the dynamic seems like it's built to stew jealousy in the kids. You've built your family divided into his and yours, and while, legally, it makes sense to a point, I'm wondering how this is affecting the children. Mainly his, since it seems his are about to be going without. I'm also curious, when he inevitably can't afford to feed him or his children, what are you going to do? You only mentioned what you said to him in response, that you didn't understand how this happened. But I can't pass judgment unless I know your response to this. OP, they mostly stay with their mom, so I don't see them a whole lot. We'll have family meals when they're here, but they mostly like to do their own thing. Food is all the same for everyone. I'm talking more about clothes and other personal items. As of right now, I plan on going forward with the separation, so I'm not sure how much involvement I'll have with his kids going forward. Update. After reading all the comments on my first post, I realized I needed more time to think about things. I also thought with the situation how it would be best that we spend the holidays apart to avoid any controversy. He wasn't a fan of the idea, but I eventually got him to agree to go. Last week things settled down, so we met up to have a more detailed discussion about the state of his finances. A few more things were revealed. I found out that he had lost his job earlier this year and didn't tell me. He got a new job in October, but he went over 4 months without one while pretending he still had one. During that time, he only got a small amount of money from unemployment, so he started putting everything on his credit cards. His new job doesn't pay as much as his old one, so he hasn't been able to pay more than the minimum towards his debts, which are now substantial. I feel like if he had just brought up all these issues earlier, this could have been avoided, or we could have worked something out. Now I really just feel like I can't trust him. I can't trust him with money, and I can't trust him not to hide things from me. I just can't see going back and trying to make things work with him at this point. Since he doesn't have a place to take all their things, I've agreed to store their stuff in my garage until he gets more settled. which means I won't be able to make as clean of a break as I would like right now, but for the most part it's over.